Okay. Jai Shivanarayan.
Jai Shivanarayan.
Thank you for participating. I am
Thank you,
going.
My obeisances to you.
Jai Jagannath. Right. Today we discussed. We can talk about still some season topic subject.
Yeah, I mean it's a seasonal topic, Mataji, but there's some important sort of points that need to be clarified. I mean, it's probably the season is probably an opportune time to discuss this, and it really reflects some misconceptions and confusions that are going around Vedic circles, which really do relate to this so-called transition between, and I say this, so-called, between the Vedic and the Puranic period, where on the one hand you seem to see a predominance of figures such as Indra, and then what the observer, the casual, uninformed observer, appears to notice, Mataji, is then this is replaced by Shiva and Vishnu, and it almost seems to take on a very different direction. So it begs the question: is there really a division between the Vedic and Puranic periods, or is this simply a change of consciousness that we are observing? Is this basically something that's been peddled by modern academics to almost discredit Sanatana Dharma? And then there are wider. There's also other subcategories of discussions that you can have around Indra and what are the so-called quote-unquote equivalents of Indra in other circles. Who was Indra? Because there's so much confusion about that, and I think these are all topics that Mataji that I think deserve further discussion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, very good. Now, as usual, we start from radically different perspective. Now, we are given this idea of period in Hinduism based on the colonial Indology. The colonial study of everything Indian, which means literally Indology, means everything about India. Okay, so Indology was started by the colonial academic narrative that was specifically planned, engineered to discredit Hinduism and to present Hinduism as a preliminary step towards Christianity or Islam, because that's the position of the Sufis. The Sufis say, yeah, Hinduism is good, but Krishna was a preparation for Muhammad. And in the same way,
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, there are websites, that totally focusing on that. And the same thing is the general academic that is mostly Christian based academics, which are saying that Hinduism is interesting anthropologically. What do you say? Anthropologically, I keep the syllable. Anthropologically, but it's just a preparation. It's still primitive because it's polytheism, so it's primitive. So you really need to move to monotheism to become advanced. And this is also based on the linear concept of time and progress, which means that human beings were stupid and ape-like and totally ignorant and, like brutes, they're primitive. And then gradually they progressed. Okay, they discovered the fire. Ooh, you see all these cavemen, jumping around. And, fire, fire, You see sometimes in the movies or documentaries or something like that. Or in the minds of most people, And then they discovered the wheel. Wow, they discovered the wheel. Then they discovered the writing. Whoa, look at that. And then gradually the progress went on and on and on until now we are on the pinnacle of progress, which is not the view of ancient cultures, and of course is not the view of the Vedic culture, knowledge, tradition. Like all other ancient cultures, Hinduism, or better Vedic knowledge, considered that everything starts from a good creation and then declines.
Yes, regression, Mataji, the theory of degeneration.
Degeneration.
From the golden age.
Exactly. While the Abrahamic concept of creation and progress, the Old Testament and the New Testament and all the stuff. You see where Christianity is going with that.
Yes, the Messiah and everything like that.
Yeah, the Messiah. Now we are the most advanced. India is a developing country, so you have to develop and become like us. Right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Hinduism is underdeveloped, is primitive, superstitious, blah, 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 blah. And I say, no thank you. So let's remember the Aryan invasion theory, which was the big, battle horse of the...
Yeah. Mataji, that's one of the biggest scams in modern in modern history.
Yeah.
And I think, to be honest, the AIT now is getting to a stage where it's quite easy to disprove and debunk.
Yes.
And there's been a sort of however, the legacy of AIT
is still going on. Still going on. And in fact, the other day I had a clash with the guys who, from an actual pagan channel. Because I was doing some research about the origins of Yule and all this stuff, and also very interesting stuff and everything. And then they start talking about the Indian culture. And then I wrote to them, please, whatever you write and say about your own culture, ancestral culture, the Celtic or Germanic cultures is great, very informative, very interesting. I'm learning a lot of stuff. But why you have to drag in the picture what you think was the Vedic culture? Because your idea, the idea that these people are presenting about the Vedic culture, is still the Aryan invasion theory model. They're talking about the Indo-Europeans. And they're shooting the same rubbish that, rubbish is a typical English British term, which is, very, very elegant, in my opinion. The same rubbish that the mainstream Christian academia, colonial academia, has been saying also about their own, the Germanic and Celtic and Norse cultures. So they're, in a sense, I can't say they're really deliberately hypocrite, but they don't verify, because they take it for granted that the Aryans were these nomadic, uncivilized peoples who were going around pillaging and pilfering and robbing and slaughtering and
they've clearly not read the Rig Veda.
No, of course not.
Anyone who understands the Rig Veda.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if they read the Rig Veda, they read the translations done by the colonialists, where they, I was shocked when I was doing some research about the Somalata, the Somayagya.
Yes.
And on the Sanskrit dictionary that I was using, the Monnier-Williams, under Soma, Soma Rasa, Somalat, the guy was describing a horrible fermented beverage, which is like totally, disgusting stuff. He was saying that, you take some of the herbs here and there, and then you put ghee, and you put flour, atta, and then you put milk, and then you ferment everything until it becomes alcoholic.
Right.
And no, if you actually read the original Shastra, you will see that the Soma Rasa was obtained by actually the fresh juice of the Somalata plant. And the Somalata plant is not a general, because the Soma, they were translating something that you drink. No, the Somalata is a particular plant that the Ayurvedic text identify very clearly, and the Ayurvedic scholars, they have given the current botanical name, that is Ephedra gerardiana.
Right, I'm with you.
And the Ephedra gerardiana is described, actually, it's described as a tonic, both for the body and mind. And in fact, ephedrine was used. In my research, I went to see also, in the most recent times, modern times, it was used until the 1950s and 60s as a food supplement to support physical and mental activity. But it was restricted, use was restricted during the school exams and athletic competition because it was giving an excessive advantage. So it was banned because, of course, they have to ban the good things. But yes, if you take the ghee and milk and atta and flour, wheat flour, and you make them ferment until it's alcoholic, you don't get that effect. You don't become, any alcoholic beverage is actually making people weaker, both physically and mentally. And the Somalata is fresh, it's not fermented. So this is the description from the dictionary, the Sanskrit dictionary. So, if people in academia, actually the Monnier-Williams English Sanskrit dictionary is the only, popular dictionary used by the academia. You can imagine what is being taught in the academia about the Vedic tradition.
But Mataji, does this, what you've said here, does it not reflect a deeper phenomena, which is to materialize something which is never material in origin, which is always going to be composed of spiritual and consciousness, but they're materializing it? Is that not the root cause of all this nonsense?
Well, to make it material is, in fact, not sufficient, because the Devas are material. The Vishwarupa is material, because the planets, the universe is material. Now, we can make the distinction between gross and subtle. But even subtle is material. So the bodies of the devas are material. And Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, says, in this universe, from the lowest planet to the highest planet, including the devas, everything is subject to the gunas. And gunas are the basis, the building bricks of material manifestations. Now, the point is, within the gunas, we have tamas, rajas, sattva. So the devas, the body of the devas, is made of sattvic matter. Sattvic subtle matter that is much more conscious than the tamasic gross matter.
So what you're saying, Mataji, is they're bringing it to a tamasic/rajasic level, which should have always been a sattvic sort of level at least. But what they're doing is they're bringing this discussion to a much lower level, so to speak. That's what's really happening here. Whether it's trying to interpret the actions, the words of the Rig Veda, or trying to tell us what Soma was, it's not. It's absolute dribble, isn't it, Mataji? Yeah,
that's exactly when we're talking about the Soma Rasa. The Soma Rasa is not spiritual; it's material. It's juice of a plant. But there is a difference between the fresh juice of a medicinal plant and this obnoxious, abominable, booze stuff that, is described in the dictionary as somarasa. So, it's not about material or transcendental. And the same thing is with God. With the gods, the devas. Okay, now why they're called God? Now this is another interesting thing. That the word God is only a superficial translation of the Sanskrit term Deva. Now the term Deva applies both to Indra, for example, and to Vishnu. Because Vishnu is also Deva. More specifically, he is Deva Deva. And Shiva is Mahadeva. Okay, but they're still Deva. So what is the definition of Deva? It's not exactly God. Because in the current interpretation, the word God, the general mainstream, global interpretation, the word God simply means someone or something that is worshipped by some human beings. Like, it's the god of rock. Yeah, because people are worshipping him. And in that same way, we have the God of the Bible, who's called God just because people are worshipping him. While in the Vedic tradition, and specifically in Bhagavad Gita, we have this chapter 16 that is describing the qualities of the Devas and the qualities of the Asuras. Now, the Asuras are also worshipped by some people. So much that Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is saying, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan, Pitri Nyanti Pitri Patra, Bhujanti, Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja. Those who worship the Bhutas, which could be, Rakshasas, ghosts, or whatever, they go to the Bhutas. So it recognizes also, in I think chapter 18, Krishna is saying those who worship, the people who are in Sattva, they worship the Devas. People who are in Rajas worship the Rakshasas, because the Rakshasas are powerful. And people who are in Tamas are worshipping the ghosts. So for people who worship the Rakshasa, that Rakshasa is God. Just because they worship that Rakshasa. So this is very confusing for many people, because then they say, that God, what is God? God is omnipresent, omniscient. What? God is
Yes, I've heard that.
That is very confusing.
Many times.
Because then they say, oh, monotheism, polytheism. So if God is omnipresent, how can he be more than one? How can he think that there is something outside God? Because if God includes everything, Bhagavad Gita is very clear. Everything rests on me. Mani Sutra Ganamiva. Like the pearls on a thread in a necklace. Everything, which means everything, doesn't mean only the things that we like. So people are confused. When we speak about God, people are confused. Now, in the Vedic system, we talk about devas. And the deva means Mahadeva, Devadeva, who is Parambrahman. The devas, the devas that are in charge, that are the ontological archetypes of the material manifestations, have a material body. They're subject to the gunas. While the avatars of the Parambrahman are not subject to the gunas. This is the big difference. Because the avatars they don't have a material body. They manifest any spiritual body they want, but they don't have a material body. They are not limited by the material body. Now, the devas are a kind of intermediate position in the sense that their body is a subtle body which is not so limited as a physical body that we know of human beings.
Yes.
So it's more similar like our mental body, subtle body that we experience when we dream. The mind, the mental body.
So if I'm to understand this correctly,
yeah.
The difference between God and the devas, I use the word God in the sense that Parambrahman is the fact that Parambrahman has avatars. Their body is completely spiritual and not subject to the three gunas, whereas Indra, I'm going to choose my words carefully here, Indra, Agni, Vayu, they have material bodies, and what they are is effectively a station, whereas Shiva, Vishnu,
it's not a position, it's their actual identity, it's their actual, the devas are also Atman.
Indeed. And Mataji, can I clarify this just for myself and for your listeners?
Yeah.
Saraswati, Ganga, Kali, Lakshmi, they are not devas. Is my understanding absolutely correct there?
Yeah, you're correct, because the Shakti is a Parambrahman. So all the forms of Shakti are Brahman. There is no one who can take birth as Kali Mata or Saraswati.
Yes.
But every Manvantara, which I think is 14 times in one single day of Brahma, we have a new batch of Adityas.
Yes. So therefore there's someone takes the
someone else takes that position. But Saraswati is not a position, it's Shakti. It's a function of Shakti. Now, Shakti is a bit more complicated than Purusha. Prakriti is a totally, incredible world that is much more complicated. But still, we have different degrees of manifestation among the forms of Shakti. Like, for example, Parvati is an avatar of Durga. Just like Sati. Which is, Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu.
That makes sense.
So we have avatars of the manifestations, and all manifestations are produced by Shakti. So the power of Shakti, it's like it's difficult to express, because power is Shakti. Shakti is power. So it's not that Shakti has some power.
Well, Mataji, it's interesting because you've already discussed this at length in our meetings, where you've said that Shakti is the feminine, the divine feminine is what manifests.
Yeah.
It's Purusha is the perceiver, whereas the manifestation is that of the divine feminine or Prakriti.
Yeah.
Am I right there, Mataji?
Yeah, but both Purusha and Prakriti are Brahman.
Yes.
They're not Jivas.
And you've mentioned the fact that Brahman becomes two, rather than two becomes one becomes two.
Yeah.
You've stressed that
Yeah.
key difference there, isn't
Manifest, yes, the manifest in variety, but that manifestation is through Prakriti, which can be Yogamaya or Mahamaya. We discussed that many times. Now, the point is, when the academic people, mainstream academics, are talking about God, they are confused. Because they think that Vishnu is a Hindu god. Krishna is a Hindu god. They cannot understand the difference between Deva and Avatar, between the archetypes and the origin of the archetypes. They cannot understand between Deva and Deva or Mahadeva. So they have concluded that Hinduism, those who have tried to meditate on this concept, they have concluded that Hinduism is henotheistic, which means that they have many gods, but one god is more important, is bigger, more powerful than the others. Which is stupid. Because you cannot say that your body is more powerful than your hand. In a sense, yeah, but your hand is not separate from your body.
Yes.
So the Devas are limbs, amsas of the body of the Parambrahman. The Viratrupa. Why the Viratrupa is so important?
And also, Mataji, would you therefore, correct me if wrong, would you therefore not extend that to all of us? Are we as Atman not just part of the body
Exactly.
as well?
Exactly.
Therefore,
that's why Indra is a Jiva.
Yeah. So
you can become Indra.
The foundation.
Yeah.
To any comparison is meaningless, because
exactly.
You can't. You're starting at the wrong place, Mataji.
Exactly. They don't understand the connection.
If you're using words like I can't even pronounce it, henotheism or pantheism,
polytheism, pantheism, monotheism, they're all rubbish.
You're starting at the wrong place.
Yeah.
Even by entertaining such concepts, isn't it, Mataji?
Yeah, it's like you're, someone who's talking about the color of sounds. What are you talking about? It's a different category. The Devas are limbs, amsas, of the universal form. If we understand that, we have a completely different perspective of Indra and Odin and Tiwaz and Perun and whatever. So this is the important thing. Now, unfortunately, also many Hindus are confused. So,
like me.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. Okay. No, but you're getting over it. Okay. While most people, most Hindus who are confused are not getting over it. They're still watching the stupid, mythological TV serials in which they learn that Shiva is an ordinary person who has a family.
So on this note, Mataji, I mean, I was struck by this constant emphasis on this distinction between the Vedic quote and the Quranic quote periods.
Which is meaningless as well.
So I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah. We're getting there.
Yes. Please.
Now, so if we understand that the Devas, described in the Veda Samhitas, the Rigs, the Rig Veda, Samaveda, like that, are basically hymns to the Devas. Okay, Indra, Agni, like that. So the Veda Samhitas that belong to the Karma Kanda tradition are basically meditations on the ontological, archetypal aspects of the material world.
Like a functional manual, Mataji.
Yeah.
How you would describe it.
A functional manual by which the leaders of society, the twice born, were supposed to constantly meditate in order to develop the same qualities. And so run the human society just like the Devas run the universe.
So Mataji, can I give you an analogy and see
Sure.
if I've got the right thing here? Let's say that I want to build a table in my house. So I go to IKEA and I buy a sort of table, which I have to build. When I open that manual to build that table, Mataji, I don't expect a manual where there's a description of all the tables in the world, what tables do.
Yeah, not only that, you are not going to get information about the molecular structure of the table.
No, I want to know how to put the screws together to build that table.
Yeah.
That's what the Rig Veda is.
Yeah, the Veda Samhitas, the Karma Kanda, are a social, ritualistic manual on which the leaders of society are supposed to meditate while they do, in order to keep human society tuned in with the rules of the universe.
Hence the emphasis on your Agnis, your Indras, your Vayu. That's why. Having said that, Mataji, when I did have a closer look at the Rig Veda, if one wants to, you will find the glorification of Vishnu.
Of course, but it's just like example. Yeah, I made the example of an encyclopedia of cookery. If you're reading the manual about the soups, you can find some, maybe some recipes with a sweet soup. Like, I know there is a recipe, it's called soup and it's made with cherries, and a sweet soup, and you add some cream, milk cream, and it's a soup. But it's sweet. But still, the book about soup is not talking about desserts.
But also, Mataji, a book about making soups is not going to talk about the history of soups and how various soups came
not necessarily.
They want to tell you how to put the ingredients together to make the soup in the first place. They might talk a little bit about the background of soups, but it's the purpose is for you.
Yeah, the purpose The purpose is that you should, get in the kitchen and make a soup.
Indeed, and the ingredients are the Agnis, the Vayus, the Indras. They're the ingredients that you've got to be using. That's why. Is that right, Mataji?
Exactly. But contemporary to the compilation of the Vedas, which was, they were compiled 5,000 years ago at the same time of the Mahabharata. And after the Ramayana was, according to tradition, compiled very long time before the compilation of the Veda Samhitas. Now, the lyrics of the Veda Samhitas existed before even the Ramayana, but they were compiled at the same time. So, the compilation doesn't mean the origin. Now, the point is that the entire building of colonial Indology is based on the foundations of the Aryan invasion theory, which says that the Aryans brought the Veda Samhita, specifically the Rig Veda, into India. And that's why they're talking about Indra, because Indra is a warrior, he's fighting, because these Aryans were nomadic fighters. Which is their perspective, which is totally false. Indra is the ontological archetype of kingship. And if the king is not able to fight against the aggressors of the people, what good is a king? So, it's a functional position, it's not an historical position, because Indra was more important. Indra is very important in the Veda Samhitas, in the Karma Kanda, because he is the ruler of the universe. He's the one who gives the laws, who gives who rules the universe. He's a symbol of kingship. Like the king is the most important person in the kingdom. But that doesn't mean that he's the best possible person, because the Brahmanas are better than the Kshatriyas. Yet they're not the kings.
So, on that note, Mataji, you've touched a very, very important area. Some modern organizations tell us that Indra, the worship, quote unquote, of Indra declined after the Vardhana Lila.
No. That's not. No.
I would love to hear your take on what it actually is, Mataji.
No, it's very simple that in Kali Yuga, people are not qualified to to perform the Vedic rituals any longer. So, Krishna says, okay, forget about the worship of the devas. Think about, doing your proper duty, and think about moksha. But not because they became less important. Because nobody, it's yeah.
The idea, because we are sold this idea that Indra was displeased that the villagers were not worshipping him, so therefore he hurled thunderbolts, and therefore Krishna Govardhana Lila happened. And since that time point, Indra is no longer worshipped. But
no. What do you think? That Krishna? No, that was just Vrindavan. And then they continue to do the worship of Indra everywhere.
So what you're saying here, Mataji, is you've got to look beyond the gross material significance of that story. What
of course, but it's not okay. The stories, the Leelas, the stories of Puranas, Itihasa, they're not to be taken as historical. They have nothing to do with history. They're lila.
Yes, and what I'm understanding now, there's a deeper significance, which is the Kali Yuga comes. People no longer can, they can't, they no longer have the ability to perform complex yajnas as their primary means of yoga. So therefore,
the Yuga Dharma is different.
Yes. You can't do
but it's
that
not
now.
because they advanced. It's like, sometimes I make this example, the invention of the writing, it was not a progress when people started writing stuff. It's not that before, the Phoenicians, people did not write a lot of stuff. The point is that they didn't need to write a lot of stuff. Like when your old grandfather gets Alzheimer and, dementia or something, and he forgets his home address, they write it down for him and they put it on his bracelet.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that now, because your grandfather can read his address on a bracelet, he has advanced, because before he didn't know. When he was young, he didn't know where he was living.
Yes. Because you're assuming that the written word is more advanced than what came.
Exactly, but that's a typical assumption that is based on the typical linear progress idea of Abrahamic cultures. Abrahamic and post-Abrahamic, which postulate a linear progress starting from stupid, ignorant people and going up to our current civilization that is supposed to be the best, but it's not the best. Because people, you can see how, idiocy is, the IQ of people is going down like crazy.
And because of this, Shri Krishna saw that and said, look, you can't do these complex yajnas now. You just can't do this, and therefore I'm giving you a much
think about the cows. Think about the brahmanas who are going to help you understand the basics of life. You're Vaishyas, you need to take care of the cows. Why Indra, okay, he sent the rain, whether you do the puja or not, what's the problem? You understand? So it's not that it evolved because Krishna said, more because the worship of Indra is backward, superstition.
Don't laugh, but I had this idea that, Indra behaved badly, therefore Krishna said, don't worship him anymore. Gosh, it's
offensive.
In understanding is like night and day, literally.
Exactly. And otherwise, when you read the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita comes many years after the Govardhana Lila. So, the Govardhana Lila story when Krishna was in Vrindavan, if you want to see it historically speaking, the linear time progress, Krishna was a child when he was doing this discourse with the people in Vrindavan. Now, Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra is much older. In a linear time sense, of course. God never gets old. But, the point is, his instructions about the Devas is that you need to worship the Devas. Krishna Gita says, a person who enjoys the gifts of the Devas without worshipping them is a thief.
Is a thief, yes.
It's not saying, because Indra misbehaved, so don't worship the Devas anymore.
You're talking about the yajna as the primary, as the complexities of the yajna that signified Indra worship, as a means of yoga, That's what Krishna is saying. Look, you're intellectually not capable of doing that anymore. That's what he's saying, but he's not saying don't worship the devas. What he's saying
exactly.
is the way to worship.
Yeah, if you cannot do this, at least do that. If you cannot do this and that, at least do this other thing. Because the beauty of Hinduism is it is adaptable to time, place, and situation of the individual persons. Desha Kala Patra.
Indeed. So I think the whole idea of taking a viewpoint, Mataji, where you see the Vedas and the Puranas as a timeline is erroneous to begin with.
Yeah.
That's simply the worst. It's literally trying to make a soup using completely the wrong ingredients.
Yeah,
and wondering why you're not making soup.
It's confusing.
Basically. Yes, indeed. Indeed.
It's because you have you want to separate the ingredients, and if you have for example, the first entrees, then you have to remove all vegetables.
Yes. Yes.
No, you don't.
Yes.
Yes. You don't have to live on vegetables, because if you want to get something more substantial than carrots and lettuce, but
yes.
You don't have to, say, no, now in this day and age, we don't eat lettuce anymore. What? We've gone beyond the lettuce. That's stupid.
So, on that note, Mataji,
yes.
What I wanted to then ask you was that Indra is obviously mentioned a lot, and people from all cultures have claimed one of their own figures to be Indra. This is what I wanted to ask you about. So,
exactly.
so there's all sorts of misconceptions. Some people say it's Thor. Some people say it's Odin.
Yes.
Some people say it's Zeus. Some people say it's this, and and what happens then, Mataji, is, oh, look, Zeus did this, Indra's bad, etc. Blah de blah de blah. So there's all sorts of misconceptions, and Indra is someone who personally I'm very fond of, and what I'd like to understand, Mataji, from you is and there's a general principle behind this, is can we take a deva from the Vedic pantheon, so to speak? I don't like using that word, but from the Vedic corpus, and I'll use the word from the Vedic corpus. Can we take a figure like Indra and give that figure an equivalence? And it could be Aphrodite, it could be absolutely anybody. Could we give that figure an equivalent in a Greek or a Norse or whatever, a Celtic sphere, or is this a practice we should avoid?
Okay, we need to understand what archetypes are. They're not limited personalities. The problem when we try to apply the general concept of God as someone who is worshipped by others, is that we limited that personality of God to a particular individual, which is fundamentally wrong, because the archetype cannot be limited to a particular individual. Now, the archetypes have a lot of aspects that we can call sub-archetypes. Like we have different personalities and sub-personalities. Let's make an example with the mother, which is the best archetype. The mother is an archetype, so your biological mother is not the entirety of the archetype of mother. But there are different sub-archetypes of the mother. So we have the angry mother, we have the protective mother, we have the peaceful mother, we have the mother when she cooks, and the mother when she does the laundry. We have lots of sub-archetypes of an archetype that is also one of the many archetypes. So there are no precise equivalents between archetypes and sub-archetypes in different cultures with different names. Now, the main archetype category of Indra is the king, the kingship archetype. And as we have mentioned, we have also that concept repeated in many names, like this Narendra, like Modi, Gajendra, or all the Indras, which are the personification of the kingship archetype among human beings, among elephants, among this and among that. So these are sub-archetypes. In the same way, Indra being the king and the power, the Lord. Indra is the Lord. Is the one, the king, what is the king? The king is the one who rules over everything, who is responsible for everything, who has to take care of the nutrition, the protection, and the feeding of everything. So in natural world, we have two main forces, which are the sun and the rain. Without the sun, Surya, and the rain, Indra, people just don't eat. Not only the people, but the animals and the plants as well. So life, the continuation of life on the Earth planet, is depending on Surya and Indra, which are the personifications of the archetypes of the sun and the rain. Now, this is also recognized by all cultures, because this is a universal truth. It's universal fact and reality. So, in ancient Norse and Germanic and Slavic cultures, because people say Odin, yeah, right, they also know Odin because they heard about Odin. Someone who is a bit more cultured, they heard about Thor. But they say, who is that, Odin or Thor? Odin is not the god of rain and thunder. He's not the king, he's the father. He's not the archetype of the king, he's the archetype of the father. You understand the difference?
Yes.
So
yes.
The king is the father to the prajas, to all the subjects, but he's not actually the archetype of father. He's the archetype of king. It's a different archetype. So yes. Odin is called the All-Father. He's the father of everyone. And why is the father of everyone? Not because he created people or because he created the world, which he didn't. But he sacrificed himself for the benefit of all the human beings. Just like Tiwaz. Odin is more in the Norse mythology, Norse tradition. Tiwaz is more on the Germanic, Proto-Germanic. Tiwaz, you see, this rune that is, I don't know if you've seen the TV series about the Vikings.
Yes, I have done, yes.
So you have seen that at some point when you have the great heathen army that goes to avenge Ragnar.
Yes.
And we have this very interesting character of Floki, which I like so much, because Floki is...
Yes, Loki.
Floki, yes.
Floki, yes.
Is something, So, and he's walking on the battlefield with this rune painted on his head, on his forehead. And this is the rune of Tiwaz, who is the Germanic ancestor of Odin. The Norse culture is derived from the Germanic culture. So we also have historical, cultural differences. Now Tiwaz looks like it's Tyr. It's the origin of the English name for Tuesday, Thursday. So we have Old Norwegian. Tyr is a one-handed god because he sacrifices his hand to control the wild wolf Fenrir. And Fenrir is also an archetype for wild rage. So both Odin and Tyr, or Tiwaz, are considered important because they sacrifice themselves for the benefit of people. Like Odin sacrificed himself, he hanged himself, he practically crucified himself on a tree, in doing penance to obtain knowledge. He gave one of his eyes to obtain knowledge. Like when we say it cost an eye, Yeah, that's coming from Odin. Then we have in Old Icelandic, Tyr is God with one hand, and livings of the wolf and prince of temples. And then we have Old English, guiding stars. It keep faith with princes. So that it's more complicated than a simple equivalence.
Figure. So you can't simply say that, what the Norse were seeing was also Indra.
Yes.
But
not exactly.
As that.
Also in Slavic mythology, Slavic culture is the cousin of the Germanic and the Norse. And you say the highest god of the pantheon, which is not exactly true, but it's okay because this is still the Abrahamic colonial, perspective. So he's a god of sky, thunder, lightning, storms, rain, law, war, fertility, and oak trees. Perun, thank you. Like what?
That makes complete sense. So what you're saying, Mataji, here, there should be caution in extrapolating the stories of Vedic figures and devas onto the myths of other of other peoples and simply saying, that was just Odin was Indra, or so and so was Indra, etc. So and so.
No, it's not exactly the same because they think that they are historical persons.
Yes, correct.
And this idea is coming from the Abrahamic and post-Abrahamic approach, which is extremely materialistic and gross, basically.
Because we are not considering the archetype behind it.
Exactly, that's a big revolution when Carl Gustav Jung, which by the way is not called Young, but it's called Jung, because that's German.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of people say Young. Who is Young? Okay. Jung made a big revolution in psychology by talking about the archetypes. But that idea of the archetypes has just remained in psychology. It was never applied to the fields of philosophy, theology, anthropology.
But I've got a question for you though, Mataji, because unfortunately, I've seen the opposite with sort of modern neo-pagans who basically relegate the devas to simply being mental archetypes, or they were not real.
Because they don't understand what archetype means.
So could you clarify that for your listeners?
Yeah.
Because some people might say, oh, well, because they're archetypes, it means they didn't exist in a physical form. They were just in the imagination.
Because they don't understand archetype, the idea of archetype.
Yes. So
they think that archetype means invent fictional symbolic fictional character. But they don't understand the archetype. Okay, let's make the example again. The archetype of the mother. Your biological mother is obviously very different from my biological mother.
Yes.
Okay, but they're both mothers.
Correct.
Now, if you take a picture, a photo of your mother and try to superimpose it to a picture of my biological mother, what you get?
You get something nonsense.
Yeah,
it's absolute nonsense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You get, something that will only get you confused.
Correct.
But the point is, the fact of giving birth is a common archetype, but doesn't mean that you actually, your mother or my mother didn't actually give birth, physically, historically.
But the actions of the mother nurturing the child,
yes,
feeding the child, protecting
but let's say just giving birth.
Common.
Yeah.
That's common, giving birth.
Exactly.
Those actions are common to your mother and my mother, effectively.
Because they the archetypal definition, the ontological archetypal definition of mother.
So, in effect, Indra and Odin were acting under the same archetypal definition, but were not quite
similar.
the same material.
Exactly.
Similar,
the broader.
But we're not quite the same material figure.
Exactly.
So you can't simply say, oh, the Yule father was Indra. That takes on
absolutely
a very different...
nonsense. Absolute nonsense.
But Odin and Indra would have led. They both led their respective hunts. They did the same activities. But the big but is that they weren't the same person.
Yeah, not only they were not the same person, but the activities they led are not exactly similar because...
Exactly the same.
Yeah,
exactly
they're not exactly the same because in the West, in the area of Norse, German, Slavic, culture, we have different climatic situations. When people were meditating on Indra, they didn't have, 6 months of night.
No.
But if you go to Norway, you have 2-3 hours of day light in the winter.
Indeed. So you can't
because the functions even of Odin and Indra, the functions are not the same.
That makes complete sense, Mataji.
So the wild hunt is Odin, who is leading the souls of the ancient warriors from the Valhalla. He's leading them around and go through their old people, to give blessings. Now the Christians have transformed that, the demons are coming. The witches, the demons,
So, absolutely, Mataji. So I think there's for me, the fundamental error, which is a very Abrahamic error, is to look at it primarily as a material concept, and to say that the primer focus of it is material, whereas we shouldn't be thinking of it in that way. This then leads a little side note, Mataji, before we finish, which is, you mentioned Valhalla. Is Valhalla the same? Was Valhalla the same as Svarga, or is this again archetypal in nature? I'd like to hear your thoughts
it's
on
also archetypal. It's a level of consciousness. It's archetypal in nature. Is the Valhalla is the ideal place of the Norse culture. It's a place where only the warriors, the good warriors go, the brave warriors, and what they do all day, they spar.
Yes.
And they drink.
Indeed, yes.
And they don't drink the nectar of the sobarasa, they drink beer and mead.
Yes. So, Mataji,
yeah.
Someone would then say to you, again, I'm playing Asura's advocate.
Okay.
Someone might then say to you that, does that mean Svarga doesn't exist? You've got these lokas, and Svarga Lok doesn't exist. Is it just an archetype?
In a sense, just an archetype again means they don't understand what archetype means. Because if you take a spaceship and you go around and try to find Svarga in the gross physical dimension,
good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. You're not going to find it. Not even with a Webb telescope you can find it. But there are portals to other dimensions where you can actually go, even physically. But the point is, why you want to go there physically? Because your physical body is not suitable for that dimension. You can only visit. Like Arjun went to visit Svarga, and then he went to visit Indra, but he didn't stay there. And that you can also visit, Patalaloka, you can visit other dimensions that you cannot go with a spaceship, but there are portals.
Indeed, Mataji. So my point is that both exist, the physical and the sort of and the subtle, so to speak, the gross, the subtle and the gross aspects of both.
Let's say physical, but it's not made of the same thing. It's like you can go and have a swim and dive in the ocean, but it's not an environment made for you. You cannot stay in the ocean. You can just go have a dive and then go back home. When you actually move to Svarga or Valhalla or, Patala or whatever else, you need to have the proper physical body, which can be subtler, is different from the current physical body, gross body that we have. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Indeed.
But many people who never seen the ocean, never dived into the ocean, they have no idea that the ocean exists.
Indeed, Masashi.
Okay.
I think this has been an excellent discussion, and I think we've started off in a very basic level, where we've talked about what is a deva, what is the difference, and I think that's been a fundamental polar shift in sort of thinking, and then we've moved on to sort of debunking this discrete shift between the
periods of Vedic knowledge,
and Puranic period, and we've also gone to discuss archetypes and what isn't an archetype and what the correct way of thinking is. So I think it's been a fantastic discussion. I think these three pillars are fundamentally important.
Excellent.
In oncology. I'd like to thank you, Mataji. It's been an excellent discussion. My obeisances to you.
Jai Shivanara. Thank you. To the next one.
Jai.